What's going on, guys? It's fight season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about the UFC fights that dropped last night. Two fights dropped. One fighter got moved off the UFC Tampa main event, that being Ian Garry. He is going to replace the injured Belal Muhammad now for a #1 contenders match at UFC 310. The main event of UFC 310 was previously the co-main event, going to be Alexandre Pantoja versus Kaya Sakkari, but the co-main event, Shavkat the Nomad Rakhmonov going up against Ian Machado Garry. That is an amazing fight. And UFC Tampa main event, Joaquin Buckley stays in that main event. And guess who is back? Colby Covington is actually fighting a contender. A day that I am so happy to say that this man is actually coming back and fighting, because everyone loves Colby. He's better around the sport. We all know that he has this kind of, persona that some people hate and whatnot, but we love to see him fight. He gets so many fans' attention, and genuinely, Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley is going to be a crazy fight with all the trash talk going on. But today we'll break down the UFC 310 co-main event, as well as the new main event for UFC Tampa. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always updated with the most recent UFC content as it releases daily. But without further ado, let's jump right into the video. UFC 310 co-main event, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Garry. UFC Tampa main event, Colby Covington going against Joaquin Buckley. So as we all know, the main event for UFC 310 was supposed to be Shavkat the Nomad Rakhmonov fighting Belal Muhammad. Now, Belal Muhammad had to pull out of that fight. Some people are saying that, he should have fought when not. He had a bone infection in his toe. Awful thing. He ultimately had to have surgery to get that thing fixed. Now, the main event of that card is going to be Kaya Sakkari versus Alexandre Pantoja. Kaya Sakkari is a risen champion. He's coming over to fight for the flyweight title, and I think a very exciting fight. But the co-main event actually is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov staying on the card and prying Ian Garry from that UFC Tampa main event, fighting 1 week earlier against Shavkat Rakhmonov. And this is an incredible fight to have. Shavkat Rakhmonov, 18-0. 18 finishes. Ian Garry, 15-0, and he's got a good amount of finishes as well. Now, the biggest surprise that I'm seeing on UFC.com, now I don't know what the odds should be or what the true odds are, but UFC.com is saying that Shavkat Rakhmonov is a plus 180 against Ian Garry, who is a minus 218. And I look at this fight, and I see Shavkat Rakhmonov as the most dangerous UFC welterweight right now. Don't get me wrong, Ian Garry is a very good fighter. He can 100% win this fight. He is that good, but Shavkat is a different breed. Shavkat Rakhmonov, as I said, 18 wins, 18 finishes, and he has beat some of the best competition in the welterweight division. He's beaten Stephen Wonderboy Thompson by rear naked choke. He beat Jeff Neal by bulldog choke. He beat Neil Magny by guillotine. He fought Harris. He's fought a lot of different guys in his UFC career, but Ian Garry, on the other hand, has fought some other guys as well. Ian Garry has fought the likes of Jeff Neal. He just fought Michael Venom Page. He also fought Neil Magny as well, so I truly do think seeing these two individuals going into the octagon against one another on December 7th, I think would be an incredible fight. Now, the biggest difference between these two individuals is that Ian Garry is going to have the height advantage, but what's actually crazy is that's a 2-inch height advantage, but Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to have the reach advantage. Shavkat Rakhmonov's reach is a whopping 77 inches, whereas Ian Garry's is 74.5, 2.5 inches towards Shavkat. Also, the leg reach is the same on these two individuals, and obviously fighting at 170 pounds for Shavkat and Garry, which I do think that Garry is going to be able to make it pretty easily. That's not a big thing. He's already had a fight scheduled, as well as Ian Garry isn't the biggest UFC welterweight. He kind of is tall and whatnot, but he's super lean, always makes the weight, and Shavkat is definitely bigger than him, and he's had this fight scheduled for a very long time. So I kind of look and I see that Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Garry is going to be a very interesting fight between these two individuals, but I know that Shavkat's the underdog right now, but I just don't see a way that he loses this fight. Shavkat's the better grappler. Also, Shavkat is a great striker. He's not going to be as calculated and rangy as Ian Garry, but Shavkat's a monster out there, man, and he genuinely goes in there and does every little thing correctly to make these fights work. And genuinely, I see these odds, and I would be instantly placing bets right now on Shavkat to win. I wouldn't pick decision or anything like that, because I think Ian Garry is a very resilient individual. I think that this is also a 5-round fight, which is going to benefit both fighters. I feel like Shavkat's got a pretty good gas tank, although in that barn burner fight versus Jeff Neal, you can kind of see him wearing out. Ian Garry's got a very economically efficient style, so he's going to be able to go all 4 rounds. And genuinely, I cannot wait to see Shavkat versus Ian Garry as the co-main event at UFC 310. My early prediction, as you guys have kind of figured out, I got Shavkat Rakhmonov winning. I'm not going to kind of say what it is, but right now, I do have Shavkat winning, and I do think that is kind of the most likely scenario to get that rematch with Belal Muhammad, or reschedule that fight rather with Belal Muhammad. Now, the new main event of UFC Tampa. Now, Amelia Arena had a couple main events prior. It was thought that Song Yadong versus Umar Nurmagomedov was going to be the main event. I kind of made a video on that, but it never came in and it never was signed. And then it came to be Joaquin Buckley versus Ian Garry. As we all know, that fight was pried off the card to make Ian Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. And now Colby Covington is returning from a year-long layoff after losing to Leon Edwards last year. And this is crazy for me to see, because I only thought that Colby Covington would accept fights possibly for, someone like Jack Della. He was talking about fighting Kamaru Usman again, Leon Edwards for a rematch, something like that. I think Colby's a very big prize fighter. He's turned into an incredible poker player, I know. But he is going in there and fighting the younger generation in Joaquin Buckley in an incredible fight that I'm actually super excited to see. Not saying that I was excited. I think that Ian Garry versus Joaquin would kind of be a better fight, but I always love the sport when Colby Covington is around it, because genuinely, I look at Joaquin Buckley and Covington, and I do think that it would be a very impressive fight to really be had. They don't have any odds up because this fight was made last night, but I look at Joaquin Buckley and I see he's got a great wrestling game as well as a very powerful striking game. And I see Colby Covington, and he is theoretically the cardio king. In that last fight with Leon Edwards, it was thought that he was going to go in there and be Leon's hardest test, because he's got that cardio, he's got everything that could go in there and beat Leon, but he really didn't show it. And I think the biggest thing for Colby is going in there and putting the cardio on the line. Now, Colby apparently broke his foot in round 1 against Leon Edwards. I don't know what the validity to that is. I don't know if that's 100% true, but if that is true, that would affect Colby Covington monumentally. And this fight with Joaquin Buckley, I think, is a good task to really see if Colby Covington is staying around the UFC welterweight division. As we all know, Colby Covington has fought for the belt 3 times, against Kamaru Usman twice, and against Leon Edwards once. He's lost all of those fights. The first fight was incredibly close. He ended up getting finished in the final round with like a minute left in the fight. In the second fight with Kamaru Usman, another very close fight to where there is some people saying that he did win that fight, or that fight was a tie. And in that Leon Edwards fight, that was a one-sided fight towards Leon. But if Colby broke his foot, obviously that's a little bit of an anomaly. But Joaquin Buckley, great fighter. Colby Covington, amazing person around the sport. He might not be your favorite. He's a big loudmouth, trash talker. Not a lot of people like that. I really hated what he said about Leon Edwards' father last year, but genuinely, it's better when Colby's around the sport. I can't wait to see him come back, and to see him fight a contender is absolutely insane in my mind, because Joaquin Buckley is a very dangerous fighter. He might not have beat someone like Ian Garry, because that's a very hard stylistic matchup for him, but Joaquin beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who was looking really good in that fight. He also beat Vicente Luque, who I think was, coming off a little bit of, he's came off that brain hemorrhage versus Jeff Neal, and that was kind of a very hard thing for him. But in my opinion, Joaquin's toughest fight and his most impressive win was that UFC St. Louis co-main event, where he beat Nursultan Ruzaboyev, who is a 6'5" welterweight, and Joaquin Buckley went in there and looked great. So Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley, incredible fight. I'm so happy to see this as a UFC Tampa main event, and I cannot wait to see Colby Covington's return inside the octagon, where he is fighting an actual contender within his division. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fightsism MMA. Please let me know what you think about the new UFC 310 card. Main event now is Kaya Saikaru versus Alexander Pantoja. That was previously the co-main event, and the new co-main event is pulling Shavkat from that main event because Belal Muhammad pulled out with a fight. Obviously, champion's gone. Can't have that be the main event. And pry Ian Garry over from the UFC Tampa main event to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov in a #1 contender co-main event fight. And now slot in Colby Chaos Covington to fight Joaquin Numansa Buckley at UFC Tampa in Amway Arena. I do think that this would be an incredible fight. either way, all these fights are really, really good. Shavkat versus Ian Garry, very competitive fight. I think Shavkat is the best UFC welterweight right now, but Ian Garry's got a lot of promise to him. And seeing Colby Covington return fighting a contender in the welterweight division, I think is a very fun thing to be had, considering that Colby is a veteran around the sport. Joaquin's still coming up. Joaquin's got a great highlight knockout reel. I cannot wait to see these two people fight. But ultimately, please let me know down in the comment section who you think is going to win. Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Garry, as well as Joaquin Buckley versus Colby Covington. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Please have a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications, just so you guys are always tuned in to the most recent UFC content that releases every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.